Dear State Secretary Ingvild, nice to see you here. I'm pleased to start the last session, which is more, I think, a beginning than an end of a longer relationship between Brazil and Norway. We have had 3 days, very full of technical meetings. Session. We have had 130. We have had 130 people participating, and we have had 50 speakers. So it's a very active group. We have been at the CBPF for the 2nd time, and we see how longer relationships grow when you continue to meet. So we hope to continue to meet also in the future. I'm pleased to introduce Ingvild, the State Secretary, to have addressed the audience, to say some, I hope, blessing words. But we also bless to continue, because State, of course, Ingvild is the State Secretary of Ministry of Petroleum and Gas, which is very important in this cooperation and funding also the Research Council and the session itself. Yes, so Ingvild.
Thank you, Rune. And we are talking to each other with our first names because we have known each other for a very long time, and we have even been working together for quite a long time as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy that there's still some people in the audience. I know being focusing for 2 days, as you have now, listening to 50 different people standing here having some speeches and trying to give you some information of importance for them and for you. I know you might be quite exhausted. I have been here since last night, and I have been participating in seminars and meetings all day, and my head is quite overloaded as well, in a way. Well, I would like to begin by commenting the host for organizing this very successful and well-planned. I'm taking my shoes off now. This very successful and well-planned event with lots of interesting sessions and discussions. I also then want to thank you for still being here. 175 years ago, the first Norwegian ship arrived to Rio de Janeiro. It was loaded with dried and salted cod and returned to Norway with sugar and coffee. I think personally that's a very good trade. I'm going to bring some Brazilian coffee with me back home to Norway. We still trade fish, sugar, and coffee, but for this audience, it is much more interesting what happened millions of years before that. Because it is the organic material that later became hydrocarbons that is the reason for us to meet here at the November conference. We are both major energy nations, and we both have huge offshore resources and reservoirs. That's why we have a lot to gain for a mutual, beneficial relationship. Brazil is also one of the largest markets for the Norwegian service and supply industry, with several companies present. And Statoil has also a major presence here in Brazil. Norway and Brazil share many of the same challenges as, for example, a demanding offshore environment. And to meet these challenges, know-how and technology advances will be vital. Indeed, continued innovation is essential to move ahead, and we need the best available technology to succeed. One of the buzzwords of the industry nowadays is certainly digitalization, which was the theme of the parallel session earlier today and a keynote yesterday by David Cameron from the University of Oslo. In fact, digitalization has been an important theme of all conferences that I have been participating lately, at least the last year. That's not actually very surprising. Digitalization offers great opportunities and advantages, and it can help make processes in the petroleum industry cheaper, safer, and more efficient. But digitalization is just one example of an exciting research area with great possibilities. Research and technology development are the key elements in the BN21 agreement that was signed back in 2013. BN21 brings together the R&D community of Brazil and Norway to enhance innovation and cooperation. It adds value to BN21 that also the academic sector is taking such an active part, and I'm very pleased to see with the strong participation of both Norwegian and Brazilian universities and research institutions here at the November conference. One important instrument is to organize joint calls for R&D projects. This gives the agreement real content, and in that way, BN21 has proved very successful with the joint calls organized last year between FINEP and the Norwegian Research Council. I know also that you're working on a second call, and I do hope we can launch that very soon. The November conference is the most important physical meeting place for the Brazilian-Norwegian cooperation. Even in the age of fantastic communications and indeed digitalizations, I believe it is important to meet each other, to actually touch each other, and it's much more fun this way. Meet, greet, talk, and get to know each other is indeed a very good success and a good start of collaboration. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate Brazil on joining GOT. No, that's not Game of Thrones. Thank you. You laughed. You got it. I was quite nervous you wouldn't understand this one. GOT is not Game of Thrones. It is IEA, Gas and Oil Technologies Collaboration Initiative. That's actually much more fun than Game of Thrones. I don't like Game of Thrones, I'm sorry. You wrote that in, Jan Magne. Now you all know him. He's a funny person in the ministry. The goal of GOT is to create a global dialogue, encouraging the development of advanced technology and the policy and regulatory drivers that allows us to use it. That's much more boring, isn't it? Okay, Norway is a member of the executive committee of GOT, and we are very pleased to have Brazil on board. Oil and gas is indeed a global arena, and innovation is a lot about sharing ideas across our organizations and borders. With both BN21 and GOT, we have excellent platforms for the continued cooperation between our two lovely countries. I have visited Brazil a few times during my time as Deputy Minister, and I already look forward to my next visit. I love being here, and especially in these days when we left Norway last morning. It was windy, it was almost snow, it was heavily raining, and and the ice was on the roads. So please, if you need me some other time, just give me a call and I will run over to Brazil. Thank you so much for listening to me. Muito obrigado, I forgot that as well.
Thank you, Ingvild, State Secretary. It was very nice to see that you have kept your good spirits and humor in the ministry, as I knew you as a colleague at Innovation Norway. We will now have some for you to everybody to see what happened during the parallel sessions. We will have a short summary of 5 of them, because the subsea they are already left not by submarine, but they have to reach the plane. So I think we should start with the environment, which will be done by Ying Go or both, and Steinar Sanni. Yep. Yeah.
See, we're a joint session. That's why both of us have to be here. I'm a reservoir engineer working on IOR, and my colleague Steinar works in environment. And our session is actually jointed environment and IOR. And we know that IOR is important. Actually, we listened during the session. It's common challenges both in Norway and in Brazil. We have offshore. We have environmental issues related to use of chemicals. And we have a timing issue, matured fields. So I think this session is good to address both issues with professionals of 2 different disciplines, which is first time. It's quite fun. I hope. I have personally learned a lot from the other side, and hopefully the other side, people working in environment, has learned something related to the EOR. We opened the session with a very nice talk from Petrobras, talking about pre-SAW and post-SAW matured fields for the challenges related to low recovery and what are the possible methods to improve the recoveries. And we already, both Norway and Brazil work on gas-based EOR, IOR, and water flooding. So the more challenging methods, such as chemical, for instance, polymer, is the one we addressed most in our session. And of course, timing is an important issue, and also economical. So we discussed, or he discussed these basic factors to open the stage for the researchers to talk about their challenges, which I find very, very interesting. And we had a very good talk from CBPF, physicist from this building. Actually, his equipment is just beside the room, talking about using NMR, the instrument to characterize porous media. And from very basic scientific methods, which is probably difficult to understand, but it's sort of giving some ideas. So maybe the method can be widely used for environmental related topics as well. So we find this quite interesting. We also presented our first report of BN21 project, which is headed by Iris. So it's also quite interesting. I think Steinar could take over from your perspective in our environmental side.
Yeah, and I'll be brief, but yes, Petrobras initially mentioned that the biodegradation of EOR chemicals to be released. That's one of the major challenges also here in Brazil, as it is in Norway. So from our side, this is what we presented, or the University of Stavanger and Iris presented on biodegradation of EOR polymers. And we learned the nature of the difficulties there, but we also heard some encouraging words that there are research groups that have found enzymes that actually cleaves the the polymers. And also, there's methods. We heard about a doctorate student talking about the different methods of analytical methods they developed in relation to this. And we are also proposing that we should investigate further with, for example, sponges. What is their role in breaking down, biodegrading these polymers? There is some potential there that I can't go too much into detail about it now, but it's something that was presented. Finally, also, the topic we had 2 years ago on environment, not related to EOR, is about corals. It's a very important issue both in Norway and Brazil. And this time we heard about this new Amazon barrier coral reefs that is half the size of Wales. It's really huge and represent, well, first of all, a lot of new findings of new species, new ways of that corals work as refuge for fish and so on, down in the sediments. Very exciting from a scientific point of view, but also very important that these coral reefs are not damaged. And so they represent a huge challenge to the oil and gas industry, as it is a very currently hot topic here in Brazil. So I think that was, yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. And then we have the session of flow assurance. Anis, are you going to, yes? Okay, yeah.
So I'm Anis Ayati, a postdoctoral fellow from the University of Oslo. Together with João Carneiro from ISDB, we chaired this session on flow assurance and multi-phase flow. So we wanted to keep the term multi-phase flow in the title because flow assurance can be many things. But a number of the academic participants of this session work specifically with multi-phase flow conditions. So the lineup for the session, as you can see, consisted of a combination of academic institutions. We had the University of Oslo, PUC Rio, University of Sao Paulo, and University of Campinas. Some research institutes, ISTB and IFE, and supplier or service companies, ESSS and Technip FMC. So we try to cover this flow chain from basic research to production operations. Luckily, we didn't. We had the cancellation from Petrobras, so we couldn't have a representative of this production aspect. However, the session was quite interesting. We allowed, or we had the Technip FMC to open the session and set up the stage of what is what are the flow assurance challenges that and potential solutions or potential R&D topics that both academic and industrial institutions can address. It was quite straightforward. And then we had the technical part that can be divided into two parts, a modeling of flow assurance related topics such as oil-water flows with the effect of surface chemistry. And also was one of the big topics of the development of modular-based simulators. And of course some detailed experiments and how the experiments really help both understanding flow phenomena and how they can help develop future more accurate models. The conclusion from the session can be drawn in a simple way. I think we see a clear tendency towards including more physics into multi-phase flow simulators. We also see a very clear tendency of good collaborations between Brazilian and Norwegian institutions within the flow assurance and multi-phase flow area. So amongst different combinations, we have the University of Oslo, PUC-RIO, ISDB, SINTEF, ESSS, and a potential new collaboration between USP and NTNU. As I mentioned earlier, Technip FMC came with a real, with a concrete challenge to look at flow inside rough pipes, and this could be a potential sponsoring project. So that's it for the flow assurance session.
Thank you very much, Anis. And then there is the digitalization by David Cameron. He also had a keynote speak that really brought us beyond the buzzword of digitalization, so also led the session.
Okay, I was challenged on the first day by the Consul General talking about new wine and new wine in new wineskins and old wine in old wineskins. And I felt very much like an old wineskin as a result of that. The digitalisation session on day one has been ably summarised by the State Secretary, so I'll leave it at that. The digitalisation session on day two filled out that, because what we saw was we managed to get to a session which had a presentation from Brazil and a presentation from Norway from companies about what the digitalisation context looks like in both of the countries. So we had Ismael Santos, who's from the CENPES in Petrobras, who presented Petrobras's focus on that and actually took up the World Economic Forum oil and gas digitalisation study and presented a very capable summary of that, and then showed some concrete examples on how that was providing a model of what they were doing in CENPES. Unfortunately, Vida Hepso from NTNU couldn't make it because of illness, which stopped him getting on a plane. So he was ably stood in for by Egil Chorland from NTNU, who presented Statoil's vision of digitalisation, which we us in Norway have seen a great deal of, and also the very good work which was done by NTNU around the interviewing of the oil companies about what their needs are. And they presented a model of industrially linked dual interdisciplinary PhD projects, and it was great that NTNU drew a picture of it, because that's exactly also what University of Oslo has in mind as well. So thank you for formalising what we've had in the back of our heads for a long time. We then had four presentations which looked at different areas of digitalisation and how computer science and analytics and all these basic technologies in computer science can be put in place so that you actually can solve real problems in the oil and gas industry. And they're also by people who we in Norway have collaborations with, or have contacts with, or have a vision of building collaborations over the next 2-3 years. So the first presentation was from Mar Abel from Rio Grande do Sul, and it was about ontologies, which is computers need to think about things in a certain way. You have to represent things to computers. And it also helps people if they think about things in vaguely the same way and use the same words to describe things. So Mara gave us a presentation of what ontologies are all about as applied to exploration. And that is also very positive because we at the Sirius Group in Oslo have been working for 3-4 years around about the same sort of area. So it's a very complementary area, and we hope that we are able to get up collaborative projects around this, you know, cluster, Oslo, NTNU, Rio Grande do Sul, Petrobras Statoil in longer term. The next presentation on that was from here, and it was another aspect of digitalisation which is very important. It was a presentation from our host institution today, which was taking the information from the NMR machine that we talked about in the previous session and applying statistical analysis, applying machine learning in a context where you have lots and lots of physical information that you continue to want to use. And that's a really important example of us being an oil and gas industry who deals with physical things. We need to be able to combine this statistical analysis and machine learning in a way which builds on the power that we know that what we're dealing with is physical. And so that paper was a very good example of that. And then we moved on to a presentation from IBM Brazil, which is a very, very good research group within IBM, and indeed probably a substantial part of IBM's global competence in oil and gas. So if you want to work with IBM in oil and gas, Brazil is the place to come to. And the presentation on that was on cognitive computing and examples on how you could use cognitive computing along a whole exploration value chain. And then finally, my co-chairman, Francisco Duarte from Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, made a very important paper about digitalization always happens in a human context. So Professor Duarte is an ergonomist and works around how do you take technology and enable it to be presented and used in a way that supports social interaction and supports the operator in their task. And that is also, again, an area which we are very much interested in the work we're doing around digitalization. And I think it's critical that we always keep a social and human face on this, because I think the decisions we make are primarily social. So that was the basis of that. On the grounds of that, I believe there's a great scope for building up, putting PhD students into NTNU, building up collaborative work around semantic technologies and around working practices. And there could also be interesting projects around trying to benchmark and compare how you do it in Brazil and how you do it in Norway. So what is karaoke digitalization and what is lapskausgen digitalization, perhaps? Okay.
Thank you, David. And also then we have the exploration relevant geosciences that was out of the program last year, but very happy to see it again this year. Ritske and Monica.
Yes, my name is Ritske Huismans. I'm from University of Bergen, and next to me I have Monica Helbron from State University of Rio de Janeiro. We chaired a session on exploration relevant geoscience with representatives from the geoscience departments in Bergen and in Oslo, in State University of Rio de Janeiro and at University of Sao Paulo. We also had representatives from Shell, Ali Brandenburg, and from Petrobras, both presenting but also present. Isabel Carmo, who stepped in very basically with late notice, and I thank her for that. A number of the presentations discussed how we can join forces between geoscience in Norway and geoscience institutes in Brazil on passive margin research, on sedimentary basin evolution, and how this can be relevant for exploration. One aspect that we particularly focus on is the acquisition of seismic data, of refraction seismic data, on which there is a long tradition in Norway of acquiring this type of data, and there's very little, at least in the academic community, there's limited competence and capacity in Brazil at this stage. And as part of the project and collaboration that we're developing, we aim to transfer competence in this area to Brazil. And so we're actually working with a very concrete and mature project right now that we hope will be funded next year by Shell. That includes seismic acquisition along the Brazilian margin. A very important element in this research collaboration is the mobility of young researchers, of Brazilian PhDs and postdocs that spend time in Norway to facilitate the collaboration between the academics in Norway and Brazil. And so mobility of young researchers is a key element. And in that context, we have actually been very happy with the support from CU and CAPES during the last 4 years that have already allowed mobility of both PhDs and master students between Norway and Brazil. And that has also allowed us actually to get to know the key academic collaborators and also industry collaborators and partners in Brazil. It's been a very fruitful and long day today. We have also had actually we also had a presentation from a group at State University presenting a effort to drill the offshore Santos Basin through the International Ocean Drilling Program, IODP. And so this is also an effort. Shell shared their views on academy-industry collaboration and their areas of interest, which are actually very broad and much wider than exploration, geoscience only, I should say. I believe there's a lot of potential for actually using the complementary expertise in Norway and Brazil for research collaboration, and we're now at the stage that we're actually getting very concrete in infinite research. Monica, do you have anything to add to this? No?
You make a very good resume.
Okay.
It was a very nice meeting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Now we have the last session about materials technology, which we have tried to have on the program for many years, and now we managed this year, so please.
Yeah. Try to see if I can get the program for this up here. Oh, it's visible. Oh, never mind. Okay, so we had a materials technology session in this conference for the first time, and we actually had 6 presentations from 3 from Brazil and 3 from Norway. One of the presentations was from SINTEF on corrosion-resistant alloys for seawater applications. The other 5 presentations were in fact on the same theme, and that is corrosion and material integrity of flexible pipes and flexible risers, which is a very hot topic in Brazil these days, and it is an important problem also on the Norwegian sector. So in fact, Norway and Brazil are the 2 largest markets for flexible pipes in the world. And when we now see corrosion problems and integrity problems after some years' use of these flexible pipes that were not foreseen when they were installed, then there is a need for research and understanding and to put the field experience into system. And the presentations today covered all parts of this. We had the presentations from IFE and from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro on the understanding the corrosion mechanisms, what is actually happening and what is the cause for this type of corrosion, and how can we understand it enough to predict the remaining lifetime of these flexible pipes. Then we had a presentation from the University of Rio Grande do Sul, which has a very large lab where they can do large-scale testing, very large yeah, 10, 15 meter pieces of this, which can be bent and stretched, and they have like 12,000 tons force or something like that. So a very large scale facility which can be used for mechanical testing of these flexibles. So that was a bit more on the practical side. And then we had the presentation from 4Subsea in Norway, who is doing a large amount of work on systemizing the field experience on integrity of these flexible pipes, and actually making that is our link into the digitalization also, because they are making this into a database where all of the field experience is collected and systematized. And then we also had a presentation from Shell in Brazil, who presented a real field experience in their fields here in Brazil, where they've seen integrity challenges for this type of flexibles. So it was a very good mix of academic and practical and real field experience for a problem which is very important and which needs continued research. And we have in fact just started a collaboration project between Norway and Brazil, which is on this particular field. So that was very practical. One of the comments at the end of the session was that this was not really a material session, it was a flexible pipe session. So we concluded that maybe next year we should have both a flexible pipe session to follow up and a more general materials session. We will see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolf. Now it is time to round up. It's my 5th conference, and I've seen the cooperation growing, getting better, both between the Norwegians and the Brazilians, and both the Brazilians and the Norwegians. And it has been easier to also to organize and plan and execute this conference. And one of the reasons why this has happened, I have to say thank you to Pilar. She is the one that has the details and grips on everything, and this would never happen without her. And my head contact in Norway is Karen Krosjå Johansen, and it also will very be difficult to have this happen without her. Yes. And also with our cooperation partner in FINEP, Denise. It also gave us a lot of support. She was actually the first one that started to believe in the Brazilian and Norwegian cooperation on oil and gas. So a big thank one against that, Denise. I never stop saying that because it's really true. And also I should thank all the participants. I should thank CBPF for hosting. It is so nice to be here in a research institute and not in a hotel. Hotel is okay, but this is a lot better. And we also see how you integrate better and better when you know who are sitting and who is coming as to visit. And we look forward to more cooperation in the future also. And FINEP, we have University of Oslo. Morten is a strong, always a strong supporter of this initiative. And we have University of Bergen, we have University of Stavanger. Bergen and Stavanger is the first time they are participating as a part of the SINUS. We have IRIS, we have SINTEF, both now from Brazil and Norwegian sides, because now they have a leg on both countries. And we have, what more? There are so many. There are 7. I did bring an IFE, of course, the last contributor here for the material session. And then we have the Brazilians, which is the 2 new this year is Universidade de Fluminense and Universidade Estadual de Rio de Janeiro. We have the Federal University of Rio, the Federal University of Sao Paulo, and USP, and Campinas, and Santa Catarina, and Espírito Santo. So there is a big group of universities working together, and it's just growing. You see thematically, also the exchange of education is increasing, the research cooperation is increasing, and well, I think we'll see. It is a challenge for us. I thought about this because it is always the best conference ever, and that gives a big challenge for next time. It scares something out of me. But I said, it's not a worry, because it is the researchers and the cooperating parties that make this happen. So I don't really have to worry, because it will be better next year, and this year is better than last year. So that was how it will be, I think. Well, this is then the end of the conference, more or less. It is the starting of the continued relationship and cooperation. I don't know who. Morten, you always have been very silent today. So do you have anything, because you were here before there was the beginning of the conference? Do you have any comments now, or? Yes, that is what I thought.
Yes, I can, of course, thank you, Rune, because you have done an enormous job to putting this together over the past month. I will use the opportunity to thank all our Brazilian partners contributing to this event. Of course, our partners in Norway, and on behalf of them, I will thank you very much, Mr. Chellard, for hosting us here at CBPF. And that's important to be here, as Rune said. And of course, we are also very glad that the State Secretary came here this afternoon, saying some words to this conference. I actually have the history. I talked about that at the beginning yesterday, how this started, and this is the 5th conference, and we are now looking forward to next year already. I think we have built a collaboration atmosphere that has brought us from a stage where we collaborated a little bit scattered to a more coordinated effort now. And if we are able to continue this for another, let's say, 5-10 years, I think we will reach a new level of collaboration. And I know that there are also many other areas that we can collaborate. I was in Berlin last week on biodiversity. This week we have started an energy and oil and gas, and next week there will also be a solar energy seminar in Sao Paulo. So I'm going to stay here for 2.5 weeks, and I really like that. As the State Secretary said, as I said yesterday, Norwegians like Brazil and Sao Paulo, in particularly in November. So, and thanks to the General Council as well for hosting us on Sunday, and always being around, helping us getting into the system here in Brazil. So thank you very much, everyone, and looking forward to see you next year, and maybe before that as well. Thank you very much.
And then the last to thank is actually the Ministry of Petroleum and Gas, who is funding a lot of and supported these initiatives from the BN21. For a long time before it was a BN21, they never gave up. And you see it gives results in Brazil, never to give up. And also I thank Cecil for always being supporting the Consul General for our research initiatives, and also funding this conference together with the Ministry of Petroleum and Gas. So thank you very much. And then I think I will declare, I hereby declare this conference ended.
you.